Okay, two red dots. Today's guest, Brian Clyne. I met him, like many of the guests, through soccer at the soccer club.
Mhm.
He and I have exchanged some conversations during futsal on a couple Monday nights. One thing led to another. I did what I usually do. He was talking about something simple, and I went down very deep, and he's like, started asking questions. And then we had a few text messages back and forth about some dreams he had, about having how he's got a different opinion that kind of rubs people a little bit differently. Um, and then we met up about 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and he began to tell me his story of how all these dreams came about. And I immediately stopped him 2 minutes in and said, "Stop! Are you willing to get on a podcast? Because you will find out very quickly why he is on this podcast. He's had a unique journey,
Mhm.
and I'm going to leave it there. Brian, please let the world know who you are, what's your name. I already just told them your name, who you
Yeah,
are, what you do, all that type of stuff, and we'll get into it.
yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you, having me on. And it's not a story I really tell a lot. My close friends know it, my family, obviously, because I went through it. But it's not something I'm like proud of. But it's made me who I am today, and it's been a big part of it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Um, so I grew up in the church, in the LDS church. My parents. My dad converted. My mom converted. Uh, and when I was about 12, I I got introduced to marijuana, and so it was a pretty young age that I started smoking, and that led to other things. So I was what you would call like a troubled teen, but I hit it really well. So nobody really knew what was going on. And mentally, spiritually, I kind of checked out around then. But kept going to church because that's what I was obviously, forced to do, and I had to be a part of. And um, it quickly evolved into selling different drugs, and happened at a young age. I mean, when I was 14, I started really like selling marijuana, and then that evolved because it just things do. And
Yeah, it's America. You got to build a business, right?
yeah, so I started expanding my horizons, I guess, and um, I didn't really partake in everything, but there's a market for everything, so I found people to buy things, and I always had a way to get them. Uh, but kind of fast forward, I got introduced to cocaine, and that is kind of where all the trouble came from. Very quickly, that is a very slippery slope. So within 6 months of me even like trying it for the first time, I was like very heavy into it, selling a lot of it, um, getting a lot of people to try it, and trying to, I don't know. I was 16, 15, 16 doing all this stuff. I didn't really think much of it. It was just kind of what I'd been doing. But I got into a sticky spot with my girlfriend at the time, and her parents found a backpack that I had that had everything in it, everything that I would sell. And that didn't go over well because it was in her car, and they felt inclined to tell my parents. So they sat me down, and we had a big long conversation. And the result was they were going to tell my parents about it. And I went home basically and packed up a bunch of stuff and um, ran away. I ran away from home, and I moved in with my cocaine dealer. That was an interesting few months while I was out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I'm hesitant to expand on some of it, but I guess that there's no names or anything, but um, he felt like he was immune because his dad was in the government, and his dad was the one that was supplying everything to him. I went down to like the docks in Dana Point. I went down to the docks in San Diego and got bricks of this stuff off of the boats. So it's like I don't know how he was involved other than his son could do what he want and he wasn't worried about it. And, I don't know. It's pretty intense looking back at it, like how much trouble I could have got in. And
Hmm.
I'm so glad I got through this stuff at an early age, before I was 18. But okay, so I had run away and, living with him. We were just kind of doing our thing. It's all really still kind of a blur. When you're doing things like that, your mind's not really fully there. And, my parents in the background, I didn't know any of this was going on. They had hired a private investigator. Thought I was paranoid, seeing people follow me around and take notes and stuff, but, it was legitimate. I found out later, so it wasn't all in my head.
Yeah.
Um, and they had connected with my girlfriend somehow, and they set up a whole plan to basically get me, so that they could send me to rehab. Um, and the day that it happened, it was strange. Everything was kind of going normal, but my girlfriend at the time had said a few things that were strange, like these kind of like final thoughts and final it just felt like there was a finality to it, but it was just a normal day for me. So it was really strange. And then she went out of the way to go get gas when she said she wanted it. So it's like this whole time driving home from the beach. I lived in Southern California. I was near Laguna Beach. And, it's like, hey, why are you going right instead of left? Or what's going on? And she just kept having excuses and, oh, I want to do this. I want to go there. And it just felt weird the whole time. We get to the gas station that's close to where I grew up, where my parents lived, and I still wasn't really thinking anything of it. She got out of the car, made a phone call, said she had to make a phone call. I'm still kind of just sitting there. And, next thing I know, she comes back into the car and says, like, oh, I just want you to know I love you so much. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Yeah, I love you too. Kind of gave me like a last kiss. We start driving through the parking lot and she's going like 2 miles an hour. Just the whole thing felt weird, I wasn't really thinking about it, thinking of it. And then I see my brother-in-law's car, my dad and him get out, and my dad pulls me out of the car. He's a big dude, kind of doubles me over, grabs me, throws me in the back of the car. They drive me to, a park down the street from my house, and, called a friend who was a police officer. That guy came, cuffed me, took all my stuff. And from that point, I sat there and waited for like an hour until these guys came and picked me up. You've heard of those like scared straight things where they come in the middle of the night and they snatch up their kids and take them to rehab. So it was those guys, but they didn't come in the middle of the night. Like I was in the middle of the day. And I remember the day because that night I'm sitting in a bed next to two huge dudes, and, we watched the final episode of Friends, the series finale. So whatever that date is, you can Google it. That was the day I was sitting in a hotel room, like coming down like crazy, and I got two giant dudes escorting me. They fly me to Salt Lake and they take me to southern Utah. We basically drive all the way from Salt Lake down. I remember I stopped at the Wendy's right up in Lehigh, right next to the roller mills. So I had like I had seen parts of Utah before I really got to know Utah when, after this. But go down to southern Utah. I'm in a place called Loa, and that's really where kind of the start of my spiritual progression began. This is completely disconnected from everyone. We were only allowed to write letters. We had no contact. I was there for, about 8 weeks, 8, 9 weeks, I think. And, it was, I don't know. It was interesting. We're miles away from civilization. We hike from water source to water source. We get resupplied once a week, and the whole thing is it's a good place. It was a good way to come off of the drugs. There's nothing there. You got to really deal with it. But I was fortunate to have some people that were very spiritual, guides, that, not in like a spiritual guide sense, but, two of the staff members,
Yeah.
had different opinions than I had ever heard, and it kind of had resonated with me and, um, got me thinking, I guess. And, at one of these places we had stopped at for the night. I had a dream that night, and it was the first time I'd had a dream like this. It was uh, it was really cool, and it's been something that stuck with me for a long time. It's been pretty profound for me, at least. Um, I woke up and I was in the same spot that I had gone to sleep in. It's like the dream was the next morning. Um, at least that's how I interpreted it. Like I had woke up the next morning and everyone was already out of all of their tents. And I got my stuff together. I got out and I look out and I see them all playing a game that we would play with a hacky sack called a pelt. Because if you drop it, you get pelted with the hacky sack. And at the head of the circle that everyone was playing was this completely traditional Confucius, really long, thin Fu Manchu, Asian guy, like very traditional Confucius. Like when you think of Confucius, you're like, oh yeah, that was it. And he didn't say anything. I don't really recall much about it, but the thing that stuck with me is he had a tattoo on his arm. I should have wrote this down beforehand. Um, and it was in Chinese characters. And I guess to give a little background, I started taking Chinese as my foreign language in sixth grade, and I took it all through high school. I took some in college, but it didn't end up going further. So I have a lot up in my brain that maybe subconsciously I still remember, but it's hard to come out. But in this dream, this tattoo he had, uh, let's see. Uh, I'm gonna hold it up. Let's see. So the top part, the line, is the number 1. The middle part is the character for the 1,000, for 1,000.
Okay.
And then the square is the character for mouth. And then if you combine the 1,000 with the mouth, it actually means tongue. So I interpreted it as 1,000 mouths have one tongue. Um, and that's really the thing that stuck with me the longest and has brought a lot of thought around it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was very against religion. I was very against a really organized religion at the time, so my brain kind of associated with that, and my initial thought around this was, oh yeah, 1,000 mouths have one tongue. It's everyone's regurgitating the same crap. It was just very negative, like everyone's just saying
Mm-hmm.
the same crap. Nobody, I don't know. Everything around my feelings at the time was very negative. But that quickly changed. I had some other cool experiences, nothing like that, but I did have another dream. It was a few weeks later, maybe a month later, when I was in that program, where the same guy showed up. I was at a place called Miller Creek Cove, and it was, again, somewhere in the southern Utah, Capitol Reef. And it was a little area. It was a campsite we stayed at, stream going through like the middle of the campsite. It was really beautiful. And there was a section of this little stream that kind of diverted off to the side and pooled. And in that pool, there was a rock in the middle of it. Um, so I'm sleeping on this campsite again, and it happened after we had um, it was like a hot, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It was like a hot powwow, we had hot stones in it, and it was very meditative.
Like a sweat tent or
Sweat
something.
lodge. It was like
Yeah, sweat
yes, a
lodge.
sweat lodge. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really intense experience there. Um, and that night is when I had this dream. I woke up, same thing. It was like I had come to, and I was already sitting on that rock that was in the middle of this little area. Go ahead.
Have you, before this, just to kind of break it up, have you had any dreams or experiences like this before?
No,
Okay.
no, not that I recall
Okay.
anything like this.
Okay. Continue.
Um, yeah, and so woke up in the dream. I was sitting on that rock. Same guy is across from me on the other side of this little bank. Um, Again, doesn't say a word. Same tattoo. Same dude. It was 100% the same dude. this Confucius guy, and he's looking at me intensely, and I look down at the water. I think just kind of diverting my eyes, like uncomfortable a little, and I look down, and there's a pine needle in the water. And in this program, I had learned that you could actually charge a pine needle, rubbing it, getting static electricity. A pine needle can become a compass for you. It'll float in the water, and if you have it electrically charged, it will move for you. I think we use regular needles because for the metal, but in my dream it was a pine needle. And as I'm looking down into the water at this pine needle, that's kind of just like shifting a little bit, a drop of water, a pretty large drop of water, fell from the sky and hit the water, and ripples moved this pine needle roughly out of the way, kind of shoved them to the side, and it fall, they're little waves, so just push this pine needle out. And right after that, a feather came down. I don't know what kind of feather. It was just a feather. Floated down really, really slowly and landed on the other side of this needle and pushed it back exactly, where it was before. Didn't really understand that one for a long time, but have slowly kind of come to an interpretation of it. I'm sure there are others, and maybe this one's unique to me, but for this, and it's I interpreted it as it does not take a big event to shift your thinking or to shift your path. A lot of people I feel like I've talked to just about spiritual things, want these really grandiose experiences to happen for them to believe or for them to change their line of thinking. And I don't think it takes that. I think as big as something can be, there's the flip side of that. And the smallest occurrences or things that can happen can have that same effect, and it really changed your line of thinking. And it's been true for me over the years. Very little things have opened my eyes or changed my line of thinking, to believe something different or feel something different than I was before. It doesn't always have to be a big experience. You don't have to go to the other side to see,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's so many ways to interpret it still, but that's kind of what I've come to on that.
Well, no, I mean, you and I talked about that. There's the stories that are told on YouTube, the stories that we talk about are the big events, the near death experiences, the car crashes, the going to the other side, some huge aha moment that everyone loves to create movies out of, right? But
Mm-hmm.
for the majority of us, for 99% of us, it's those subtle little shifts. It's those subtle little things in the mind that you were ignorant to 1 second before, and now you're not. And you just go about life. No one will ever know it. You don't need to talk about it. Just little subtle shifts, and those little subtle things add up over weeks and months and years to a drastically different human being than a couple years ago.
Absolutely. And it's really cool because even you saying that, the first thing that came to my mind is we didn't really talk about what happened after this experience, because other than I told you I wasn't allowed to go back home from this program because they didn't want me relapsing. They didn't want me getting with my same friends. So I finished school at a place called the Utah Boys Ranch. It was in West Jordan, or West Valley. I don't really remember, to be honest. But I think it's out by the copper mine. And in that place, it's an LDS program, so I had to go to church on Sundays. Still wasn't feeling it. Go ahead.
Hold on 1 sec.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Confucius guy.
Okay.
So it was those two dreams, right?
Yes.
And you had the two experiences. You understood Mandarin, so you kind of put the 1,000 mouths have one tongue. The
Mm-hmm.
needle, the small events. Was there anything after that? Did he ever talk to you in a voice that you could hear, or was it just a visual?
It was completely visual. He never said a
Okay.
word to me, and I never heard anything, telepathically or anything either. He never talked to me at all. He was
Mm-hmm.
just almost just like pointing me to look at something, or
Mm-hmm.
directing me with his eyes, or but that's it. And I've never seen him since. I haven't had any dreams since, and I've been asking every night since we
Every
spoke.
just
Yeah,
yeah, good to
every
see if
night.
he
I
comes
hope
forth.
just to
Good.
see if he comes back. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, didn't really that never really clicked for me until you said something too, like that he could be my spiritual guide. One of them.
Yeah.
Um, I'd never really crossed my mind. It was just, yeah, this random guy. I projected it in my consciousness, but not did I? I don't, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just you even using those words projected into your consciousness, shows your understanding of what's going on. So, okay. Keep asking for him because I want to know if he comes back. Okay. So you're at the boys' ranch in West Jordan or West Valley.
Yes.
Continue.
So I'm at the boys' ranch. Had to go to church on Sundays. Had to read the Book of Mormon as part of the curriculum. I had read the Bible in the past. I read the Book of Mormon. But now I'm really in this like, man, I want to find out what everybody else is talking about. So I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read Siddhartha. I read the Quran. I read the Bible. And I was reading the Book of Mormon. And I was going, and those are the ones that it was limited to that, but that all happened in like an 8 month span that I read all of those things. And I think I just like absorbed a lot of it. I forgot about most of it. Because it was so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 30. How old am I? I'm 37. I'm 37 now. And that was when I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17 years old. So it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until my wife was pregnant with my son that we just had in August that all this stuff kind of started flooding back. And it's just crazy timing wise, which usually things in the universe are like that. But my wife wanted to name our son Bodhi, and we wanted to spell it like the Sanskrit way, Bodhi. And after he was born, and she said it, and I was like, "Yep, that's it, that's him." I can't explain it, but we're naming him Bodhi. There's no, sometimes you go back and forth with names. If maybe he'll be born and I'll call him this, or maybe it'll change, or on the day he's born, maybe we'll change. I don't know, but it was like, this is his name. This is who he's gonna be. He's gonna be Bodhi. After he was born, we bring him home, and I like go up to him, and my wife's in the room, and I pick him up and I said, "Oh, my little Bodhisattva, look at you, my little Bodhisattva, you're so cute." And she looked at me and she's like, "What did you just call him? What is that name?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It just came out. It was just it just felt right." And then I looked it up, and then everything came flooding back, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh my gosh, like." That'd be crazy if he is that for people, if he is a bodhisattva for
Mm-hmm.
people down the road, or maybe he is for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but there's something that there was like some kind of connection that felt so right. And my wife and I have lived our lives since we got married in 2018 um, that way. And we have 100% relied on whatever you want to call it, whether it's God or the universe or higher power, the creator, whatever, you can call it whatever you want. We don't force anything. If we get some pushback, I mean, it's got to be a little more than like the littlest bit of pushback. But if we're trying to make a decision or we're trying to go a certain direction, and it feels like the universe is against it, we we table it, we think of something else, and we go a different way. But every decision we've made since we've gotten married has been so easy to make because it just feels right. There hasn't been that pushback. It's worked out perfectly. We just put a lot of trust in that feeling, that internal confirmation that we would get when we would be making decisions. And as it just kept getting easier and going smoothly, we were like, I mean, don't change it. Don't switch it up. Like, let's keep doing this.
Would you, for the listeners, would you let them know what a bodhisattva is?
It's I don't remember how the words break down, but it's a guide. It's someone that guides you to enlightenment. Um, and I don't remember if the Bodhi is the enlightenment and the Sattva is the leader or the guide. But that's essentially what it is somebody that leads people to enlightenment.
Let's see here. Yeah, I remember my teacher telling me they're a human, an incarnation that chooses to come back and help people with enlightenment. Helps a lot of people on their path.
Okay.
They don't need to come back to Earth. They don't need to reincarnate, but they chose to come back to help
Okay.
humanity. So yeah,
Yeah.
if I remember
So
that, I was just looking it up on Google and I remember what my teacher was saying. So that's interesting, right? That was kind of the thing that reminded you from 20 years ago of Siddhartha and the
hmm
Bhagavad Gita and everything. So, and then it was just natural that you named your son that. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, and so crazy because it was disconnected when it all happened. It was just like a feeling, and we went for it, and then we find out, and then I say this later, and it's just been really cool. But I did want to talk a little bit just about from that program that I was in, the Boys Ranch. I graduated, left, still was not into the church, but I now had all of this kind of stuff in the back of my mind that I knew that there was just more. There was more to it, And I still gave the LDS Church two more very very solid goes, still like solid chances. I ended up um, getting married in the temple when I was 25. Um, I It was the first person I had ever dated that even after like 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, a month, I was like, hey, I still like this person. I'm not trying to get out of a relationship, which historically is what I did. It was like I knew 2 weeks in this isn't going to last, and then it took me a few years to grow up to where if I felt that way, I didn't string them along. I just was like, hey, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and I found this girl, and she was young. I thought, hey, I like her more and more every time. This must be what it's all about. This must be love. And then she gave me an ultimatum. Basically, got to get married in the temple if we want to keep doing the things we're doing. And you know, being a dude, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to lose out on some of this stuff, so I might as well marry her and do it right. That's kind of the second to last time that I went to church, gave it everything I had, and that relationship only lasted from our marriage 13 months, and we got in our first actual fight, and she said she wanted a divorce, and I was like, I didn't know that was an option, but okay, and so we got divorced. I moved back to California, and that was in 2013, and again, kind of stepped away from the church because in my head I'm like, okay, this time I did everything I was supposed to do. I did exactly by the book, and then this is what I'm left with. Like, I don't, what's going on. Um, and then so kind of stepped away again from the church for a while, and then I met my wife, and um, she had some questions about the afterlife, and I think there's a lot of things about the LDS faith that fit in line with my beliefs of the afterlife. Not everything, some of it. And when I explained it to her, she got very interested and wanted to take lessons. So I was like, oh yeah, let's I'll give it another go. Let's do it, And um, everything was going great, but there's always just kind of been this thing kind of niggling in the back of my mind, like it's not everything. Like I think they say it's like they believe it. The LDS faith believes it's the most true. But even just saying that, even in saying that, they're basically saying that it's not everything. It's like maybe we take the most pieces from everything, which is kind of leading me back into this thousand mouths have one tongue. The more that I've been coming back to different religions and different people's descriptions of of their beliefs, and whether it's a religion or not, just different lines of thinking. Um, it's led me to more believe that the thousand mouths having one tongue is that everybody's kind of saying the same stuff. Everybody's pointing the same direction. They're just all getting there different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, since since I came back to the church and tried it again, I baptized my wife in the church. She's a convert, which is what's made this so difficult too. Is I basically made her. Not I didn't make her, but in this process, she kind of relinquished all of these spiritual beliefs that she had prior to meeting me that actually now fit so much more in line with where my thinking is. She was so far ahead of the curve that I came back from talking to you, and I'm like I'm bawling like a baby and apologize, like I can't believe I made you, or you did all this for me, and I'm so sorry that I brought you in, and now I'm going this direction, and you thought you were going to be here with me, and I'm now taking off, and she's so understanding and so thankful that I'm here, and we're on this journey together, no matter what. She's incredible, and she's had so many experiences. I can't wait for you to meet her and talk to her,
Mm-hmm.
because as I'm bringing things up that I'm learning now, because I'm out there looking and listening to new people and new ideas. And when stuff resonates with me, I'll relay it to her. And then all of a sudden it unlocks a memory that she had.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now that you've said that or put it that way. And sometimes it's just the way that somebody says it.
Mm-hmm.
You showed me Darius, and there's something that I've believed in my heart, and this is one of those things that rubs people in the LDS faith the wrong way when I bring it. At least in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
California, man, people were so open. I would talk in church. I would bring up my opinions and things that I felt or disagreed with, and you'd get a pretty much resounding like, "That's interesting. I'm going to think about that." Like
Mm-hmm.
that was the general consensus. I come out here, and one of my first times I went to church, I spoke up and I said something similar to what I'm about to talk about, and basically got shut down. Like, please don't ever talk again. Kind of, that was basically what he told me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like whoever was running the show. And I was like, wow, if you're gonna feel that way, like, wow, okay, I guess I won't have an opinion.
Well, I
But
mean, for people listening that's not in Utah, Salt Lake City is like the Vatican City of Catholicism. Salt Lake City is the Vatican City of Mormonism. I'm sorry. It is the birthplace. It's very protected. There's a lot of closed offness, and there's a lot of fear based for people to see things differently. I mean, there's so many people that get ostracized from their family for just saying certain things, or a lot of people
yeah,
leaving the church, and the family won't talk to them, church won't talk to them, friends won't talk
that's
to them,
just
and yeah,
how
interesting,
it's
huh?
so wrong. It's just like that's like the complete opposite
What the
of
church talks about, yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. So that's always sat with me weird. And it was my wife that said something a long time ago when we first started the process of starting to go to church and all those things, that again, it was going back to the dream and tying it into the dream. It was one of those very subtle things, the feather, that shifted my line of thinking. And I had stuff going on in the back of my head that I didn't realize was working on me as hard as it did, until talking to you. And then the floodgates opened up, man. I'm telling you, I feel like I have grown spiritually in the last 2 weeks again, more than I had in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, and she had said something that was that again kind of like made me think and question, and is what put me in line to now take this new information. And it was, she didn't believe that we would we could only be together in the afterlife if we got married in the temple, if we got sealed and did all that stuff.
Yeah.
And because that never sat right with me. I was like, why would I not be able to see the people I love? Why would I not be able to be with the people I love? That just never really sat right with me. But I didn't realize how much it didn't resonate with me until she said it, and until I've kind of taken this leap this last couple weeks. Um, and that was one of the first things.
What did
And
you what did you say in church back in the day when I assume the bishop said, "Please don't ever say that again"?
Oh, oh yeah, sorry, thank you for taking me back on it. That's why you're running the show. Um, so I had made some kind of comment about that I didn't believe that there was an actual hell, like a physical place you go to. I felt that it was more of a mental state. The things that you do in this life, echo in eternity. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have to live with that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so if you do something and you get to the other side and you realize what you did because your eyes are open and you've seen everything, that is or will be, and you see what you've done to your fellow man, another soul, in this life, that'd be hard to live with. Like, I cannot believe I did that to that person. You do that enough, that's your own hell that you're living in.
Yes.
Um, never being able to forget what you did to other people when they're just as special as you are. Everybody is
Mm-hmm.
certain. And so it was that plus, by not believing that there's a traditional hell in the sense, that everybody from Hitler to, Gandhi are all in the same place. They're all there. And the only way you would leave it is if you literally choose to leave the light, leave, the people that are on the other side, and you ostracize yourself, you remove yourself. It doesn't mean you can't ever come back. And again, that's just like how I've always felt. And by saying that, like what Mother Teresa and Hitler are in the same place, like you get a lot of like, yeah, right. Like, how dare you, put them
Oh
together?
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't
And
know.
that is my when I'm talking to someone and it's just not clicking about the division that's created, that is my go-to, and that
Hmm.
shuts them up. That
uh,
shuts them up very quickly to because then it leads into Catholic, atheists, Republican,
mhm,
Democrat, black, white, right, wrong, good, bad. Like
mhm,
what's right to one is completely evil to the other person. What's wrong to another person is heaven on earth, is what their book of whatever told them to do. That's right. So yeah, it's a very extreme example, but it does get the point across to that the division
mhm.
that we create, the arguments and the debates we have are childish, absolutely childish, because both sides really think the other side is wrong and the other one is right. It just
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. So
It
I'm sorry.
doesn't.
Keep going.
No, no, you're fine. And it I had mentioned Darius because you brought him up to me, and I started just like drinking it in, everything he was saying. And there's one phrase that he uses that, man, it sums up exactly how I felt, but I've never been able to put it into words. And it's so simple, which are the best kind of,
Mm-hmm.
sayings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment.
Yeah.
I mean, like right there, it's like
I mean,
it's in the definition of unconditional love. There is no condition to the love that we feel from our Creator, our Heavenly Father, our God, whatever it is.
yep.
Um,
I mean, those
it's
simple little
impossible. It doesn't make sense.
things, like when someone like Darius J. Wright, for everyone listening, Darius J. Wright is an amazing human that has controlled out of body experiences, and he's got a method that allows people who work with him to do the same. So it's not astral projecting. He talks about that very quickly. It's not the same. A lot of people have had near death experiences, and those are a mistake. Like, no one wants to get hurt, no one wants to drown, no one wants to be under
Hmm.
anesthesia and go the wrong way, no one wants to get in a car wreck. Hundreds Statistically, hundreds of millions of people have had near death experiences. Now, we only hear about the ones that come back, that are on YouTube, that write books, but hundreds of millions of people, all religions talk about it. So it's like an out of body experience. What he does is it's a near death experience, but it's controlled. And so
Hmm.
Darius has gone to the other side controlled. And the one thing I'm learning is more people, when I bring this up just nonchalantly, many people will talk about the episodes of sleep paralysis they had as a
Hmm.
kid or a teenager, and that they were just hovering above their body. Now, if you grow up in a normal religion or a normal household, most likely you're going to keep that to yourself.
Hmm.
So when they feel, it's kind of like when you and I talked, when someone finally feels that they're talking to someone who's open, the floodgates just open. Like, they're just, oh my God, I heard this voice. I
Hmm.
was above my house. But Darius is a person who helps others have controlled out of body experiences.
Hmm.
And one of the things he talks about is the you can't have unconditional love without judgment. But the other thing he talks about
With
is
judgment.
with judgment. So
Hmm.
back to what you were saying with the fears,
Hmm.
he had, like Brian was talking about, you make your own hell. He had a couple years where he couldn't really go past a certain point on the other side until he faced his fears, because he realized he created them. And as soon as he faced them, he could go anywhere he wanted on the planet, in the universe, different planets.
Hmm.
He's a very fascinating guy. If you guys are listening to this, go to YouTube, Darius J. Wright. He has a lot of testimonials.
Hmm.
He's making the rounds on dozens of podcasts of what he does, what his method is, what he's seen on the other side. It's
Hmm.
absolutely amazing. So continue.
It, it is. And he said a few things that, again, I've relayed to my wife, that unlocked a memory for her. Even recently, I mean, semi-recently, I was talking about my sleep paralysis because it happened one time and it was in 2017. And I mean, I woke up and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't swallow. And I came to terms with it at the time. And I almost jokingly was like, well, shit, this is how I go. I guess I forgot how to swallow and forgot how to breathe. What an idiot. How am I gonna explain that to people, you know? And then I snapped out of it and I came to, but it was a very intense 30 seconds that I slowly, or I don't know how long it was, but came to terms with it. And then I didn't go anywhere. And now I'm starting to understand that's kind of the gateway into having an out of body experience. It's
Yep.
not necessary. Some people
Yeah.
skip that step, but it is one of the ways to get in. Same with lucid dreaming. If you can know that you're in a dream, you can get out of your dream and you can move, to the next realm, or, you have a choice. If you can learn to
Well,
control
and that's one of the other things, I'm sure. I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but he talks about that's the explanation for a lot of people who fall asleep and pass in the morning. Someone comes in and they just have very peacefully passed away. They have had an out of body experience. They've gone to the other side. And like all near death experiencers say, most times they get a choice to stay or go. If they come back, they have work to do, but they feel so at home and so much loved.
it.
And
Hmm.
a lot of people will stay. So he says there's people that, perfectly healthy human being. They just
Hmm.
don't wake up in the morning. They just chose not to come back. And
Hmm.
one of the most interesting things I think I've ever heard him say that, and I speak to a lot of people about this, and it's something they've never heard. He says that we always think the other side is non-physical, it's spiritual, it's etheric, it's energy. He
Hmm.
says the soul is more physical than the two people on this camera right now. So we
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
we think this is physical. He says the soul on the other side is more real and more physical than this.
Yeah.
That's
Which
just fascinating.
makes I know it just really resonates. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that it's just, this is, I don't like using that matrix,
It
but
just doesn't seem real. Doesn't seem
it
real.
just, yeah, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And but talking about the out of body and talking about some of the stuff, Darius had said, bringing it up to my wife, she recalled, an out of body experience that she had, and I remember her telling me about it years ago, when it happened, but forgot about it. My mind wasn't there that it was something that I really held on to. But now I would never forget it, and I asked her more questions about it, and it was just the things she was saying was just fitting in line so much with what he was saying that I was like, man, it's like it's just truth is, it's a frequency. Everything's a frequency, right? And that's, I mean, you've seen, there's so many, I don't know, my mind's going crazy. Sorry. I'm like thinking about the consciousness of water right now. I got introduced to things over the years that have led me to where I'm at that I didn't realize were shaping my belief system, the way it has. The consciousness of water was something I came across years ago from a friend of mine, and there's two things, two scenarios of it. One, I'm sure you've heard of, there was a jar of rice with water, and there was two jars.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, they said, words of affirmation. The other one, they
Mm-hmm.
said, I hate you, F you, all
Mm-hmm.
these different things.
Yep.
And the one that was given the love fermented and became like a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful rice wine. And the other
Yep.
one molded. The one that they said hate you to, said bad things, like molded and was disgusting. It couldn't, So that was like the first one I came across. Then I came across this other guy, a, a, an Asian scientist kind of guy. I can't even remember what his name is, but he was blessing drops of water and then freezing them, or
Mm-hmm.
saying nice things, saying I love you, saying, thank you, and then doing it to other ones, I hate you, and then freezing that drop of water, and then the crystalline structure that would come from it, the snowflake that it would look like, the ones that you were saying that he was saying nice things to, and affirming,
Yep.
were
Yep.
beautiful, beautiful shapes and structures. And then the ones that he's not, when he'd freeze that drop of water, it'd be like just nasty shapes and nothing uniform. And I mean, it just, again, I hear that, and then my brain's like, well, we're 70% water. I mean, if you're constantly down on yourself, if you're constantly negative, that shit's gonna affect you. There's no doubt about it. Like,
Yep.
you people think that like the manifesting and so that can all be like, it's all juju and stuff, but like there's truth. There's got to be truth to it. It just makes so much sense. The more I learn about things, um, I don't know. It's just, but again, I learned about the consciousness of water several years ago, and that's something that kind of has just always stuck with me and really shifted my line of thinking about things. And, uh, blessing your food, like little things that, yeah, maybe it's a blessing because we've gone through, and it's like the religious side of it saying blessing, but it's really just being thankful and being positive, and that's a big deal.
Well,
To
yeah,
try to align your life like that.
yeah, and a lot of stuff is tied in, like guilty by association. So I'm going to bless my food. You're like, oh God, we got to do some Mormon thing. It's like, no, just no. I want to pray. Oh, I didn't know you were Catholic. Fuck, maybe they're not. Um,
Yeah.
I want to meditate. Oh, well, I pray. That goes against my religion. Like we have
Right.
these interesting connections that we have between all this stuff, even including the word spiritual, which has just become a new form of religion, right? All you're doing is expanding your understanding, just like someone, like a second grader reading the Bible, they're going to have a certain understanding of it. A 10th
Mm-hmm.
grader is going to have a little bit more understanding of it. A person in college, someone who's got a PhD in religious studies is going to understand the Bible in a completely different way. Now
Mm-hmm.
we always equate that to a second grader being 8, a 10th grader being 16, someone with a PhD being 25, and we
Mm-hmm.
think as we become adults that we know that. No, the levels of clarity, the levels of understanding, the levels of consciousness for most adults are at that second grade level. That's why they're so extreme. That's why my God's better than your God, and if you don't believe me, fuck you, I'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why all these religious wars have happened. It's just a very low level of consciousness, but it doesn't mean intelligence. You can
Mm-hmm.
have a 150 IQ and be at second grade with your clarity. That to me it's so interesting to me that is not a part of every conversation that comes from therapists, from religions, from uh, anything. Just thinking that an adult is 40 and has grown up and knows better has been
Mm-hmm.
continuously proven when a Republican yells at a Democrat and vice versa, and both of them think they're the ones screwing up the world or the country.
Mm-hmm.
The level of consciousness on this planet is quite low with very intelligent people, and that's a terrifying combination.
Absolutely. I want to like dogma. I don't know. People die over it. People start wars. Like, and everyone's just trying to get back to the same place.
Yep. And
So,
when people hear me say that, they always think that I have a problem with religion. I don't have a problem with religion. It is a necessity
mm-hmm.
because the level of consciousness on this planet needs structure. It needs dogma. It needs religion. The world would be even worse without religion. So anyone who says we got to get religion to make the world better, they don't understand how humans work, and they don't understand the levels of consciousness. They think without religion it'd be better. It wouldn't. We don't have
I
enough people
agree.
on this. We don't have enough people on this planet to come out of with no religion. Billions of people love that
Mm-hmm.
structure, and it makes them decent human beings, even though that if push came to shove, it's going to get ugly.
Well, I think that each, I think that religion too is right for that person at that time. I think that's what their soul's ready for. If they're, if it kind of goes to your PhD to second grade level, like they're only ready for the second grade level. They're only
Mm-hmm.
ready to hear about heaven and hell. They're not ready for the next step. They're not ready to
Yeah.
hear more than that. They're whether it's their brain or their consciousness or their soul, it's not ready to hear that information. It's gonna sound so crazy. They're just not ready for it. But the more I know I had mentioned like frequency before. I do believe like everything has a frequency. I think this, even though, yes, I have done psychedelics, but really only mushrooms. But I never did it with spirituality in mind or any sort of growth in mind at all. It was when I was much younger and it was just for fun. But even in those experiences, I that's when I came to the realization that, like, okay, everything breathes, everything is life, everything has life. Inanimate objects are still, they still have something about them that's more than just, it's not, I know it's just a piece of wood, but there's, there's a frequency there. It's still humming. And I I I think when you hear something that your soul is ready to hear, it resonates, and the frequency, you can pick up on that frequency, and it's when that feels right. That's kind of what I was saying, when we don't push against the universe. My wife and I, when we make decisions, it has to feel right. And then I think there's a lot of truth
There,
to that, in that feeling inside, like when it feels right,
yes, and that again, you got to go one level deeper with that, because to a very devout Catholic, the frequency at what they're at and what resonates and what feels true to their soul is
Mm-hmm.
going to be different than someone with a little more clarity. So, what resonates with you? So, Hitler and Mother Teresa, I'm sorry, but what resonated to them
Mm-hmm.
felt true to them in that moment. They
Mm-hmm.
would speak about, Hitler would speak about horrendous things like you just spoke about. I'm learning, I'm expanding. Mother Teresa would talk about the lepers that she brought in India with the same type of passion you just did. So when someone, like in my book, I always talk about when someone feels it deep in their bones that what they just heard resonates, and it's a second grade level, that's just their level of clarity. That's
Mm-hmm.
just their level of clarity. Because in that moment, in this lifetime, it may expand, it may take multiple lifetimes. They are talking about what resonates to them. And that is not wrong for them in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we've got so much conflict and division on this planet, because again, we never discuss levels of consciousness. Never discuss that. We're never talking about what resonates for a second grader is not going to resonate for a seventh grader or a 10th grader.
Mm-hmm.
And we continuously think that only happens for children, like legitimately second, seventh, and 10th graders. But adults are at the same level. What
Yeah.
resonates for a Buddhist is not what resonates for an atheist, and vice versa. We're not, we've got to bring in levels of consciousness, because you are so passionate about what you talk about and it's expanding you. You are so excited about learning more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
There may be someone who's at that exact same passion and excitement, just barely learning about Mormonism, just barely
Mm-hmm.
understanding. It may resonate with them at their level of consciousness. And I think if more people understood where they really sat, not intelligence, but level of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, they wouldn't be, hopefully, they wouldn't be so divided and so defensive of their beliefs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like what you said. If everyone realized they're all praying to the same God, maybe there wouldn't be some of this stuff going on. But I don't know. There's still the human aspect of it, which we are imperfect and we make bad decisions. And
Yep. Yeah, and
uh,
that's one of the, I think the toughest things, especially for me nowadays, is we have exponentially increased the number of people who are talking about this stuff. And there are people that have a lot of experiences out of body near death. And I've been watching a great a podcast, the Jeff Mara podcast. And one day he'll have a lady on that is hell bent, 100% clear, 100% confident, would put her life on the line that reincarnation is a trap, because the soul is free anyway. So why would we continue to come back to this place and get our teeth kicked in? It's don't go to the light. Don't go to the light. Everyone thinks we should go to the light. No, go the other way. And then the very next day, he'll have another person on that says reincarnation is not a trap. It's a choice. And if you want to keep coming back, that's fine. The soul's free. So if you choose to come back, you're fine. There's nothing that's controlling you.
mm-hmm.
That has expanded my mind, because I was also stuck in the spiritual path with my teacher, hell bent on one meditation, one way, only enlightenment, and then it's over. And then
Mm.
I like that never felt complete to me
Mm.
ever. So, and I would never in a million years think I would be having that conversation saying enlightenment doesn't feel complete to me, because enlightenment is peace and bliss. But all the near death experience people say that that peace and bliss we already had, and we gave it all up to come here and get our teeth kicked in.
Mm.
Huh. So, and then so there's so much information out there. It really boils down to you. And the more I learn, like I feel less and less confident in telling someone how it is.
Mhm.
Just less and less confident, and that's not a fun thing for the ego, because the ego, when I was coming
Yeah.
up on my spiritual path, felt really good when I would learn something new. But then you learn something else, and then you awaken again, and then you find more
Mhm.
clarity, and then you hear someone else. Then you hear Darius who says, "Nope, that's bullshit. This is what I've experienced in the out of body experience." It's like, fuck.
Flip
That's
everything upside down now.
that's that's why a lot of people don't like the stuff. They would much rather stay safe and secure with
Mm.
their ignorance of thinking this is the way. And
Yeah.
there's a part of me that says I wish I was 10 years ago. I wish I was still as ignorant as I was, because it was a lot easier. It really was a lot easier.
This is bliss. Yeah, that
Hmm.
there's truth to it. Man, yeah, I know I'm kind of jumping back on the Darius train again, but there's just some things he says that are just fit so in line with how I felt and I didn't know, or he says it and then I'm like, wow, yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe, or okay, if we are infinite beings, if we are unfettered and all all powerful in that form, as our soul, as a soul, and we live forever, then really coming here and choosing to do this is so that you can experience what you're not. We are not human. We are infinite beings living through eternity. How else are we going to experience something? If we've experienced everything that we could even come up with in our heads, um, this is the only way to do it, is to come here
Mm-hmm.
and be birthed and die. And everything in between is going to be an experience, because it's not something that we necessarily choose everything that happens to us, here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, it's just very interesting stuff.
Well, you have a hard stop in about 15 minutes, so
Hmm.
let's just real quick, because it's the reason I wanted to talk to you was the story. So you
Hmm.
got to you got past the first marriage. You're now with your current wife, which is a drastically different thing.
Hmm.
How is what's your spiritual practice like nowadays? Is there meditation? Is there prayer? Is there anything else that has come to you? Any experiences? Anything like that? Just to kind of expand on such a crazy beginning
Yes.
story.
um, no, so my wife is very spiritual. She grew up in a house that her mom facilitated these things. When she said she saw someone or talked to someone, or something happened, her mom didn't like, no, honey, you're just imagining. No,
She
she let
sees things, right?
she does. Yeah, she
Yes.
she sees things, she hears things. Um, Still, that all the time, stuff is happening. Like 2 days ago, I saw her go like this, and she was like, "Well, someone just walked by." I'm like, "Okay," but and there's never been one time where I questioned it either. Like, she's such a genuine human being. And she's so honest, like, to a fault sometimes. She's amazing. And in our home, we pray every night, and we bless our food. We meditate and pray both. I mean, I think they're kind of like the same, really, kind of, it's the same thing, but I do, it's easier to explain to my kids. We're thanking our Heavenly Father for all the things that we have. We wouldn't be here
Mm.
without him. And I want them to have a sense of something bigger than themselves. That it's not like, yeah, you put in the hard work, because you're not going to get anything without working hard, but um, it's not only you. There's something bigger than us. and I want that to come across, hopefully. And if taking them to church is what's going to do it for now, and that's going to, get them on their own path, then great. I don't know. The, all paths lead back to the same place. So I
So
don't care how you get there.
so let me ask you that. So with everything that
Mhm.
you have read, expanded on, the things you don't like about the church, and
Mhm.
have talked about with a difference of opinions, you guys still go, correct?
We haven't, but it's not out of the question. We just
Okay.
we just don't. We do a lot of stuff in the home, and
Okay.
my daughter too. She's seen things too, and we want to make sure that we're facilitating that and letting her know that it's okay. And you can, if it's not a good feeling, there's ways for you to kind of
Mm.
banish it, get
Hmm.
it out of there. But most of the time, they're positive experiences for her, and we want her to keep having them, and we don't ever want to make her feel like it's her imagination, or because these are real experiences for her. You
Well,
know?
doesn't that change everything about the imaginary friends all little kids have?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just have
Everyone I've
chills
talked
to
to,
it.
everyone I talked to about that said they were not imaginary, and they
Hmm.
if they had good enough memories. I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood, but the people who do, that imaginary friend was real, and they saw him. And these kids don't have them. Like, how can a kid have such an amazing imagination when they're just barely developing what a human is and what's available to them in such a young body and a young mind that can barely
Hmm.
speak? And like, oh, they're so imaginative, so creative. No, no, they see
Yeah.
things that we don't see as we get older, and we're told not to. We're
Hmm.
told it's bullshit, it's imaginary. Oh, you're creative. It's no different than that NASA study. They took
Hmm.
1,600 5-year-olds, and 95% of them were considered genius. At 12, it was 30%. At 15, it was 15%. At 20, like, it just continued. And as
Oh
adults, there
wow.
was only 1 to 2%.
What do you
So
think? Do they
that
close themselves off over the
that
years to these things? And
my parents said it's bullshit. It's not real. What I just saw, the education system that's built off of the Industrial
mm,
Revolution, religion saying that stuff is bullshit. Only God or a bishop can see that. It's just continue. TV,
mm,
everything in art. We think we have free will. We think we're making choices. We think we know what we're doing. We are so conditioned and so programmed by the marketing and the TVs and our the people who we love and the gods and our religions, and even with the people who have their hearts in the right place, they were taught the same thing. So why would they teach something different?
mm-hmm.
So those imaginary friends, they're seeing shit.
Oh yeah, I believe
It's
it.
amazing. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I had an imaginary friend. I don't see shit.
Me either. And well, that's not true, but it's just not my. It just happens so often to my wife. I like find myself getting jealous sometimes, and I need to not. That's not a feeling I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more happy for her, and I love that she shares these experiences with me. But it makes me feel like in my path, I'm not going to have the big, grandiose experience. That's not my path. If it happens, great. And I would like to take a workshop and try to have an out of body experience, because I feel like, because I had um, that uh, paralysis, that sleep paralysis experience. I think and I know everybody can. And I do believe everybody can, and we've been conditioned, like you said, to stifle that. Um, but yeah, I would love to have a real big experience, and I don't know if that's going to be what I get, but the path I'm on right now feels so right and feels so good. Um, and it just I don't want to change that. And honestly, even talking to you, I've had there's a small thing that my mind has shifted. I feel confident that um, I can say with certainty, as I learn new things, my line of thinking changes. I'm not stuck in one way and like, oh, this has to be it. One of the things that has bothered me for a long time is when people say my truth, um, because I'm always like, no, there's just the truth. What you're talking about when you say that is perception, your
It's your
perception
it's
of
your belief. Yeah.
it. Yeah. But hearing you talk even just 15 minutes ago or something, about the different levels of consciousness makes the my truth concept make more sense to me,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I was like really anti that phrase, and now the way you explain that has kind of changed my mind on it. It's still not my favorite saying because I think a lot of people use it when they're talking about perception, their perception of an event or something. But there's truth to my truth. There's truth to your truth, and
Hmm.
I never thought I would actually say that because I've been so vehemently against that phrase for a while. But again, you said something that clicked, and my line of thinking is shifting in real time.
Yeah, and that it's absolute truth versus individual truth. An
Oh, I
individual
like that.
an individual truth is like a second grader believing in Santa, and that was true to them.
Hmm.
They naturally just simply turned 10, 11, 12, 13, and Santa's not a thing anymore. Now their truth is that Santa doesn't exist. It doesn't upend their world. I don't remember a lot of kids
Yeah.
or myself thinking the world was crumbling, but everyone on this planet's, if they say my truth, my individual truth, it will evolve and it will change. If it doesn't, it may not in some incarnations, but it's going to cause irritation to that person if they're not willing to expand. Something inside them is going to say, this doesn't feel right. But that's what most people do, right? They don't want to
Hmm.
be on the outside. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look crazy. So
Yeah.
individual truth versus absolute truth. And that absolute truth is where everything comes from. You, me, Catholics,
Hmm.
Mormons, atheists, Buddhists, aliens, planets, stars, universe, constructs, Darius, out of body. Every single thing on the mental plane comes from the same source. That's the absolute truth that we're all coming from. But we
Hmm.
came here to experience individual truths.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Just again, how you say it, just unlocks a different part of my brain, makes me think a little bit differently.
yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Appreciate it.
well, one last question because you got to go. And it leads right into this. What is truth to you?
So yeah, I know. I've watched your videos, and I still don't have an answer. I couldn't tell you. That's why I got so stuck on the my truth because I wanted to be able to say my piece about it, and now you've kind of flipped it upside down since then. Um,
Not having an answer is an answer too.
I don't have an answer. The only thing I do know is if everything is frequency, truth resonates at a different frequency, and you can tell, and but it fits into what you're ready to accept. So now I don't know. I still have more thinking to do. On the
Yeah.
topic.
And the selfish reason for me asking that question is hoping that I hear something that resonates with me as well. Because I used to be arrogant enough to think I knew, but I don't have a fucking clue now. The more I hear, sometimes I just have to shut stuff off. The YouTube books, people, I just have to shut it off because there's
Mhm.
so many various opinions. It just causes confusion. So,
Yeah.
all right, Brian, I know you got to go. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know not too many people get to hear that. I'll get this uploaded and we'll get it out to the world.
All right. I appreciate it. This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Looking
yes, it
forward to more
was.
conversations too.
All right, man. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
See you, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.